Hey, everybody. Welcome to IEEE Pulse and our Industry Corner Live. My name is Chad Andresen, editor-in-chief here, and I'm joined by my friend, Ronja Müller-Bruhn, CEO and founder of STIMIT. Ronja, how are you?
I'm good today. Thanks for your time and inviting me.
Yes, we've run into each other for a few years now at all the investor meetings and entrepreneur and med tech launch space. And I'm so excited to spend some time with you telling your story and all the exciting news that's been happening the last few months for you. So let's quickly tell us who you are and what your background a bit.
Yeah, my name is Ronja Müller-Bruhn. I started the company in 2008 based on a strong medical need that was actually discovered by my co-founder who came from medical engineering. And my personal background, I'm an engineer and I did also an MBA, worked in medtech companies for a while before really starting the own company. And the topic is all about breathing. We all breathe 20,000 times a day, but patients in intensive care, patients on coma, patients on sedation, they do not breathe at all and they lose 50% of their breathing function in a couple of days. This inspired me to change something, and that's how we set out to the journey. And I went all in from the beginning to really only focus on this topic.
Amazing. And my original graduate's work was actually in some phrenic nerve pacing and ventilation. And I've had family members on ventilators. So it's definitely a dear spot to my heart and an area that I've been rooting for innovation in. And so to hear your journey from 2008 starting this is going to be an exciting conversation. So uh, your MBA, your medical, you've got a good co-founder with you. What was the technology that unlocked you guys moving forward? What was the decision point for you to start STIMIT?
The real decision point and foundation was actually 10 years later in 2018. So why? We were both in a state where I had been in industry, learned a lot about neurostimulation technologies and this medical need. And this is how puzzle pieces fit together. And as you know, because we talked a lot about nerves and your modulation and your stimulation, the the phrenic nerve connects the brain and the breathing muscle, the diaphragm. And we looked at all kinds of different technologies to hack into that breast-brain connections in order to empower patients to breathe. And we kind of have to learn to speak that language by using the right, in our case, magnetic field. We chose magnetic fields in the end to stimulate the nerve because it's a deep-lying nerve. It's very comfortable and you almost don't feel it. And that is great because you can really put these coils that you see behind of just on the neck above the skin, and a non-breathing patient starts breathing again. And that is the moment of truth that really inspires us every day when a non-breathing patient starts breathing again.
Wow. So so stimits in a nutshell, and we'll go through it, is some coils that are put on the neck to stimulate the phrenic nerve
Yeah.
non-invasively.
Yes.
And the alternative is that patients are, like you said, in coma with a ventilator. Is that really the mainstream alternative currently?
Exactly. Usually patients are put on sedation, get unconscious. The brain stops sending signals down the nerve, stop sending breathing signals. So the alternative is just no or very low level of limited level of breathing. And if it's really use it or lose it, if you stop using a muscle that's working 20,000 times a day, you lose this function up to 50% in a couple of days. And that is, of course, later you have to rebuild it. That process called weaning, that takes a lot of time in the ICU. So that's the economic perspective. But the whole workflow is really trying to catch up rebuild something that has been lost. And we really want to keep that muscle alive, keep the patient in a breathing state. And we hope that we can not only show that it's beneficial for the diaphragm itself, but also for the lung and potentially for the brain. Because it's a central in the midst of our body, in the core. So if we keep a patient in a breathing state, that can be vital. And we do that in the beginning with our current product twice a day, 15 minutes. And our vision is really to change the way patients are ventilated, using more of their own natural breathing function instead of just pumping air into the body with pressures.
Right. I think a lot more people became knowledgeable of ventilators after COVID and the deleterious effects. Maybe you could walk through a few of those, but COVID came to mind when everyone started seeing ventilators pop up and everyone was making ventilators again. But the problem is you can't be on them too long. So you're saying that the muscles deteriorate and become almost, you lose it or lose it. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's the core function that gets lost first, the diaphragm function itself. And also the pressure distribution in the lung is better because the lung inflates better if you use the natural diaphragm instead of forcing air outside in. That's a second aspect that we are looking at the moment. So these are two main focus areas of our ongoing research. And the product is already Health Canada cleared for the Canadian market. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations. So
But the whole COVID topic, on the one hand side, it was, of course, a very dynamic time. So on the one hand side, you see this pressing medical need. The medical need was already there before COVID. So we founded the company 2018 before COVID. And then during COVID, it really, you saw it everywhere. So it inspired us to really move in as fast as we can. On the other side, it was not really an investment time. So many investors backed off. And we were still able to build a nice VC round with 5 VC investors. And we also got in that same time strong strategic interest from ventilation companies. So we chose the strategic route in the end to also have synergies with ventilation as a field and focus on the patient, all my energy, and also get all these synergies with all the algorithms, synchronization, all the things you need when you play in the field of ICU and ventilation.
Yeah. Wow. And so you do have market clearance. You said is it in Canada only currently?
Yes. At the moment, it is Canada only. And we're working on the MDR for Europe and our FDA pathway.
So you chose Canada as your first market clearance. What was the process there and how difficult was it?
Canada is quite unique because the respiratory communities are very connected amongst North America. So US and Canada, RTs have the same comforts, the same education. And this is the key user group applying this bedside. The second aspect is the diaphragm knowledge is also very connected. So the key opinion leaders and really knowledgeable physicians are very connected between US and Canada. So the knowledge is very strong. And then the third aspect is, of course, the whole regulatory environment. And you can have, we always wanted to focus on one major area first to have maximum learning in a concentrated area. So I think this is a great pilot market that, while we launch in this market, we are still continuing development so that when we really launch broad scale in the US, we do not need to focus on that pilot region anymore in the US. There's also an existing ventilation registry in Canada, which is quite elegant for us to get massive data in a short time.
Wow. So that's a good hold, and like you said, it's a doorway to North America. So that's exciting for you guys. Ronja, can you walk me through the product's use, indications for use, and what's the day in the life of the product, and then what kind of physicians are using it on that daily basis and prescribing it, if you will, in lesser terms.
Yeah, the first indication we are collecting more data on is that preserved diaphragm thickness. And in the same time, as a secondary outcome, we're measuring ventilation time, because ventilation time is the key driver for the long-term success of this therapy. And we have like a two-stage approach here. In terms of users, it's usually respiratory therapists. And however, because it's non-invasive in nature, because you can learn it in a relatively short time, then that is why we believe that we could expand to other user groups as well.
Got it. So using in conjunction and trying to get the thickness of the actual diaphragm muscle, that's unique. How do you measure that then?
The beauty is imaging techniques have improved. So there's handheld ultrasound. You can see the diaphragm moving. You can watch inside. We do not recommend this as standard of care. It's just a study endpoint. So it's just helping us to have a better understanding of the diaphragm itself, while we also measure ventilation time. And the nice thing is, with these imaging techniques, you can look inside the body, because our breathing muscle the diaphragm is deep lying. So many years you couldn't see it, and you didn't know that there was a problem, and that this diaphragm thickness correlates to many outcomes. So the last 12 years have been really a momentum of publications just rising and rising about this topic, because you can see what's happening. And that is quite nice. It was a good moment in time. I always wondered, why has nobody ever done this before, right? Stimulating this diaphragm. You are stimulating the brain, you're stimulating the heart, and nobody was taking care of about breathing, and it's vital for life. So that is really how puzzle pieces just came together. And I actually met a group that was trying to start something a couple of years before me, and it was just not the right time. And when I came across this, I was really feeling that everything fit together. You can see the diaphragm with the imaging technique. The technology was matured, magnetic stimulation technologies, to really activate this deep lying nerve in a completely non-invasive way. And also cooling techniques have been advanced in the last year. So everything fit together, and it was the right time to start.
Wow,
but I couldn't have waited 6 months later, because things were really moving in that space. And so because I was first, some others joined my journey instead of the other way around. So that was quite a dynamic time.
No, let's get into that. Let's talk about the dynamics of the last few years, and getting getting something moving forward requires capital, right? And it needs both excitement, it needs usefulness, and like you said, all those pieces were coming together. And I'd love to hear more about what you're saying about the 6 months. If we did 6 months later, what has been that dynamic in this space of getting funding, remaining excitement, and then competitors trying to, or similar things trying to also, let's say, add noise to what you were doing?
Yeah, especially the first year was super dynamic, because I really started to file patents, all the ideas I had, as soon as I could. First two ones were rather handwritten and homegrown. It was a lot of fun to write them. And because I did, could really speak openly to the clinical community. So that helped me because a lot of ideas were filed and a lot of concepts and IP that to really be open and speak with others and continue to develop this. Because when I started it, it just didn't work. We tried it and it was not comfortable and it was not really working. So the technology was there to stimulate deep lying nerves, but not for the phrenic. So we had to build more different devices, and then things started working. That was really dynamic, more on the research side. Switzerland is excellent to get started. There's a lot of grants, business angels believing in technology. So that was a great time to start. But then we had this valley of death after 2-3 years. So about 2020, 2021, we had to look outside of Switzerland for additional funding for more regulatory milestones. And that is where we built this first VC round, and then in the end decided to go for a strategic offer. That really helped us to focus on the patient. And then there were, with strategies change. So we were able we were fundraising again. And this is where I met you a lot of times in this fundraising phase. And it was also a really good time for us, because every conversation with you, with VCs, we learn, right? So they challenged our business models. They challenged some technical details where we could just improve and learn and exponentially grow from, and improve our approach to the US market based on that feedback. And that was then again, second time was similar like the first time. In the end, we got again a strategic offer, and that was then our choice to move forward, because it's maybe just me. I love to focus on the patients, and while fundraising was really great and helped me grow, it also very time consuming and defocusing from the real thing. So that is then again in the second series, we again chose for a strategic partner, and we are very happy that way. So right now we are in a moment, we have Health Canada approval. The founders moved to Toronto now to really realize the potential, transfer the knowledge, and get some sales going. Pilot sales, of course. I mean, the real focus remains on the US. And it's for us, the US market is, of course, the major focus as a total plan.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love hearing the story, seeing the story, and I'm sure, like you said, I think every founder has that problem of, I just need to help the patients. I need the technology to move forward. And the money, and getting the money and the funding and the capital is just a step, right? The real battle, even though it feels like, asking for capital is the battle. The real battle is executing, right? Doing the right execution of product design and development, and getting through the door to actually start sales. And then the real battle is, how are we going to impact this market? And I think it's great. I love and suggest for everyone is to have some sort of beachhead foothold market to figure out the prescription, figure out the users, figure out the approvals, figure out which nurses need to be trained as well. And so much to learn, I can imagine, as always, in the school of hard knocks of sales. And so I'm excited for you on that. Where it started in Switzerland, is that correct?
Yep.
Or tell me a little bit about that process.
It started in Switzerland, and I think it's quite good. The best of both worlds. Switzerland is really great in developing technologies, and at a certain point, you have to really have this growth mindset, onboard new people, learn from others, because at a certain point, you need that market input and market experience, which is really a skill in the US, like the quality of clinical data, the clinical study designs are on a very high level in the US, and then also the how to bring an innovation into the market. I think US is just the best market for innovation. It has been a bit different some years ago when regulatory hurdles were low and prices were low in Switzerland, in Europe. And in the US, the bar was higher, but also the price higher. Or the value seen by innovation, we could also frame it like that. And now with the changing dynamics on the regulatory side, the bar is as high in the US, but I think insurances do not incentivize innovation. So it is a different dynamic. So all the co-founders and CEOs I know in MedTech, and I know a few in Switzerland and Europe, are all focusing on North America.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear about your position on regulatory, but yes, I agree. There's a whole world of Europe was first. That's how we got all my first clearances, were CE marked in Europe, and then the challenge of finding every country's reimbursement pathway, right? And in the US, it's the regulatory pathway is much more clearer than Europe usually, or at least now is definitely more straightforward, it appears, and much more reasonable. And Europe is increased in difficulty. But the challenge, like you said, is not anymore about market approval. It's the reimbursement, the value, right? The value to the healthcare system. But what is your plan for the U.S.? If whatever you can share as your strategy.
We're in the midst of our FDA pivotal trial. We are also aware of FDA's request for real-world data, which is a great opportunity to collect as much as possible on the Canadian side. And on the technology side, I'm quite comfortable. So continuing our safety profile the way it has been so far, it's non-invasive. So that is really something we consider our key strengths. And that is, so we are aiming for the de novo pathway with the strategies we have, and have a second pre-sub end of year to align strategies. And I am very optimistic because the FDA pathways are generally appreciative of innovation with the breakthrough programs, the NTAP reimbursements, and generally welcoming innovation and entrepreneurs. That is our impression.
Yeah, I remember probably 5-7 years ago was when the FDA and CMS started putting their heads together on rewarding innovation and helping the whole process, because medtech was dying, right? It was a lot of technologies would get to market with no help and no assistance. So the breakthroughs were important. The pre-subs became critical. So it is, I think for all the entrepreneurs out there, that is definitely on the key path that we have of people working together. The community here has changed dramatically in a positive way, I think, in the U.S. So it's exciting.
And the knowledge of FDA experts has been quite impressive. So, some development improve. So some topics that they raised as potential risks we addressed by advancing our technology. So it was a useful process, and it was less about forms so far. Let's see. The final submission can be different, and more about content and real life securities. So,
yeah, well, I'm excited. You're in the pivotal trial now. Are you doing that in the US? Or
yes.
Okay.
It is important that we have at least half of the patients done in the US. And so far we have started Canadian site, and we're looking at for adding further sites after looking at our first official interim analysis, which is upcoming end of year.
No, that's exciting. Well, anything else you want to share that has been brought why STIMIT is amazing today and what's going to happen next? What is the potential of the technology dreaming beyond?
Yeah, our first technology is stimulating twice a day. It has been exciting to get it so far that we have this design-free, the first commercial approval. We see it in use, that we are looking at it bedside. That is really driving me personally and our team to see this moment of truth when a non-breathing patient starts breathing. And yeah, of course, we're continuing now advancing with our new partner to have a second generation to really have more continuous stimulation. Yeah, if we to change the way ventilation is happening in the future. So that's the more visionary part, and we're getting stepwise towards that vision, and that is an exciting journey to be. I love that interface between conventional ventilation and still this neurostimulation aspect, how to activate the nerve, how to speak the language of the nerve, how to stimulate in the right, let's say, stimulation patterns. So that was also with you, and on these congresses where we met, there's so many neuroscientists, and it's a really interesting, exciting field to be in.
Yeah, no. You guys have any type of feedback or closed loop feature to how the system works now?
We are not designing to closed loop. That is also a regulatory strategy. However, we do measure certain signals and make sure that it's simple for the user and as safe as we can for the patient. Basically, we follow the flow. So whenever there's flow, we stimulate. And that is so that we would always be as good as we can in synchrony with what is going on in the ICU and from a ventilation and breathing perspective of the patient. So that's on the technology side, one more aspect. And on the neurostimulation side, I mean, you know what it takes to stimulate nerves in the right patterns. It's about timing. It's about intensities. It's about the breath patterns we want to create. And there is a lot more potential to leverage over the next years.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's smart that you did not put the word closed loop or having any closed loop functionality in there. The first one, I've seen that really slow down processes. So that was a wise decision, it sounds like. I'm very excited to see the impact and to get that market clearance here in the US. And it's always a pleasure speaking with you, Ronja.
Same for you, Chad. Keep on the great work. Also on the neurostimulation side, it's an interesting field to be in because you're activating actually the body's own natural functions and helping it to cover some times where maybe some functionalities are suppressed or lost or suboptimal, and there's so much more we can do, even with some potential to eliminate some drugs by activating natural body functions. So I know you're working in that field, and it's always good to exchange.
Yes. No, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck on everything. We'll see you next time.
See you next time, Chad.